May 24th in Texas, we got a runoff for Texas Railroad Commissioner. I have more with the candidate here on a special The Crude Truth.
In 1901, at Spindletop Hill near Beaumont, the future of Texas changed dramatically as, like a fountain of fortune, thousands of barrels of oil burst from the earth towards the sky. Soon, Detroit would be cranking out Model Ts by the millions, and America was on the move, thanks to the black gold being produced in Texas. Now, more than a century later, the vehicles are different, but nothing else has truly changed. Sure, there may be many other alternative energy sources like wind and solar and electric. But let's be honest, America depends on oil and entrepreneurs, and if the USA is truly going to be independent, it has to know the crude truth.
Well, today I'm excited to have my guest, Wayne Christian, who is running for re-election on the Texas Railroad Commission. Wayne, how are you?
Good to be with you. Honored to be here in the big city of Fort Worth.
Oh, it's always great to be in Fort Worth. It's always bigger than the one to the east, if you know what I mean.
Hey, I'm with you, brother, till I get over there.
Hey, exactly.
You know how a politician works, you know.
Oh, you have to. I know. I understand. No. It is. They're both good. We're both oil and gas, so you know what, Dallas and Fort Worth, as long as we stay
we're
like
in
that,
Texas, so you can't get any better than that.
Amen to that. No, you can't. Wayne, thanks for coming today. You are blowing and going, and I know so are all your opponents right now. Y'all have a runoff on May 24th. Is that correct?
Yeah, May 24th, and I think there's a couple of weeks of early voting before then. And just real quickly, I'll just start off with my good campaign plug. Just remember to vote for the only Christian on the ballot.
That's Wayne Christian, correct?
That's it, yes, sir.
Okay, I love it. Wayne, you've been there now for 5 years. Obviously, your 6th year you're running. What is it that you have been excited that you've been working on for the last 5 years there?
Well, I don't think we've ever been under attack for our way of life as much. And a lot of people are not aware, number one, that the Railroad Commission has nothing to do with railroads. We're oil, gas, coal, uranium, we everything in the ground, pipelines, everything from the ground till it gets to the refinery, the Railroad Commission regulates. And what is absolutely amazing, it's taken for granted in that, number one, you don't know what it is, and oil and gas is taken for granted in the state of Texas far too much. It's 1/3 of our economy is oil and gas and the secondary jobs around it. 1/3 of our economy, 1 out of every 10 jobs, all the rainy day fund, all the permanent school fund. Rick Perry, when he was running for president of the United States in the debate that he had, he made the point legitimately that during Biden's first term, which was Barack Obama's administration, that the gross national product was like 0.8%, just nearly nothing, anemic. Yeah. Had it not been for the state of Texas, that would have been a negative number. The state of Texas, that's when we're having the shale boom, the fracking, the horizontal drilling would be developed and going, yes. And we literally bailed the entire United States economy out from going negative.
Wow, I did not know that. I did not know also that we have 1/3 here in Texas. The economy is related to the oil and gas industry.
Yeah, when I first got in the commission, I'm an old banker and financial planner and a stockbroker. That's my profession that's my day job that allows me to practice my habit of my addiction in politics. Okay, put it like that. What's amazing is that you look at, what's the other figure? The other figure is for every dollar that the Railroad Commission, when you go to the legislature, they always tell the legislators every commission has to cut their budget by 20%. Yeah. And that's how the governor, that shows we're conservative, we're going to cut across the board. Right. And that's legitimate something. I got to thinking, I said, I know that TxDOT is a cost figure, legitimate cost. Law enforcement is a cost figure. Certainly it is. Public education, a cost to the state and the taxpayer, legitimate. But I said, the Railroad Commission, shouldn't be that much of a drain to the taxpayer. So I had our head accountant there at the Railroad Commission on my first week go in and said, okay, I'm an old banker. Figure me, for every dollar they send over here and fund us from the legislature, what do they get back over there? Yeah. And for every dollar they fund the Railroad Commission, they receive $50.32 back over there. So I started going around to all my friends. I served in the legislature for a long time. Yes. So I started going back to all my friends. I said, okay, you're going to cut the railroad. Let me tell you something. I've talked to Glenn Hager, the comptroller. If you guys in the Dome are so dumb you can't realize that a 50-to-1 return is a pretty good deal for the taxpayer, we can start a fund with a bond issue for the public,
Yeah.
and I can give them 25-1, and we can make a heck of a lot of money for the state of Texas and give our constituents 25-1 return. So the oil and gas in Texas is the black gold. It's what makes Texas different. Really is economically.
Amen. I've been in the industry. I'm second generation, and I just know that the oil and gas industry has nothing but blessed me, my family, and so many others because of the jobs that we create. Like you just said, with the way this administration is right now, how are we doing? How are you and your team competing against, or as I would say it, battling this president of the United States right now with our oil and gas industry?
Well, of course, we're blessed in Texas that we have less percentage of public lands than almost any other state. We have more private land, and so he has not limited the production on that land by decree and willing. It's cut back because of the stupid policies that he's enacted, which are just insane, and mostly a lot of it's financial. Because they took pictures on the East Coast of flaring, okay, and flaring was polluting the whole world, going to destroy everything there is. It was the environmental catastrophe, and so Wall Street decides they're going to start these environmental, social, and governance funds.
Yes.
Okay, because of all the damage Texas is doing. Well, you start looking at the facts, which is something that gets very confusing to some politicians and some people. The facts are, before COVID, all the flaring in the state of Texas was 2.7%, okay? That of all the state, 2.7. During COVID, went down to 1.9%. January of last year, we were at 0.7% of gas was being flared in Texas. Mid-year went to 0.5%. Right now, it's less than 0.2%. 99.8% of natural gas is not being flared in the state of Texas. But look how The Power of Bad's a great book if you haven't read it. It talks about people go for bad. Politicians go for the bad. They have to have something terrible to run against. You got news media, has to have something bad for the news tonight.
Absolutely.
And then special interest group, the green environmental extremists have to have bad. So they took, think of this, less than 0.25% shut down with ESG funds $18 trillion for financing to the state of Texas at the very moment we need to rebuild from the attack we had from Russia, Saudi Arabia, and China, basically, with COVID, that drove natural gas to the lowest price in history, a negative number. So all that on the table, and they shut down financing from Wall Street. So I've been fighting that on two different levels. One, Senator Birdwell and Phil King, Representative Phil King, passed a bill that I encouraged that said if you discriminate against an industry or guns in Texas, you have to put guns in there when you're from Texas. Okay?
Amen. Yes.
So if you discriminate as an investment group, we ain't gonna put any of our money with you. So we withdrew hundreds of billions of dollars, the teacher retirement account, the public employees, a permanent school fund, all this, and all of a sudden these folks from New York are in my office with their hat in hand, said, "Oh, well, we really like oil and gas and whatever like that," and a bunch. Anyhow, it's horrible that they take so little and shut down the whole industry. And so it's I think that's a perfect example of how the climate catastrophists have made a religion of what they do. And there is no state in the nation that's any cleaner to the environment. In fact, state of Texas, the last 50 years, we have decreased every one of the poisonous gases of the EPA by 77%. The past 100 years, we have decreased environmental deaths by 99%. Okay? We did a test. They talk about when you're dirty in the water in Texas with oil and gas. We had a test we did with the EPA that commended us. It studied wells from 1982. I think it was 64,000 disposal and injection wells. Okay? They could find no instance of primary drinking water contaminated, nor even secondary sources to the drinking water. Okay? So when you start looking at the facts, people just won't believe their lying eyes. Joe Biden, in the speech he made to Congress prior to the State of the Union, the earlier speech, he said we're 15% of the world's environment. The rest of the world is 85% of the environment. And his quote, "If we did everything right, it would make no difference." And then the next sentence was, "That's why I joined the Paris Accord. $78 trillion, hundreds of thousands of jobs worldwide to clean the environment, and it don't do a blessed thing," he said, to fix it.
No, I mean, you talk about that. We are, I'm glad you brought up those statistics. It makes me feel better because I do know, being an operator and a producer here in the state, the rules, we have to follow the regulations that the Railroad Commission puts in place, and they are there to benefit not only the safety of other citizens in the great state, but also Mother Earth. That,
Yes.
hey, that is what's giving us, we have, no different than a farmer. It comes out of the ground. And so we all are thankful, at least I know I'm thankful for God for the opportunity and that he gave to us. And so we need to treat it like it is our own and continue to only do great things. You mentioned there about the Green Initiative and the Paris Climate Accord. What are you guys doing on that front? Because look, I'm not against alternative fuels, alternative energy, but they are not going to be here today. They're not going to be here tomorrow. We might have an actual commercial productive green energy in 20 years at the earliest, probably 50, something that could actually make a difference. What are you guys doing right now to really combat all this green energy? Because of all this money that's going there, we're not getting it as oil and gas companies looking for investors. So why is it that it is such a great thing right now, this green energy?
Well, the truth of it is the biggest scam in the history of our nation is this green environmental extremism, catastrophism, okay? All the terms.
Yes,
I understand back in the 70s and 80s, Time magazine, you look at the covers, it has the Arctic Ice Age, the big freeze. We're all going to freeze to death. Well, that didn't happen, so all of a sudden they turned to the global warming. The heat's coming. And then that didn't happen. In fact, what happened is a group of Texas University professors rented a Russian ship, go to either the Antarctic or the Arctic to measure the melting icebergs for global warming. All the icebergs were melting, okay? And so they get down there. This is honest goodness truth. On Christmas Day, I think it was 1987, December 25th, 1987, their ship got frozen in. They're measuring the melting ice. And so they had to get an icebreaker to come break them out. Well, it left global warming at that point as their term. It went, now we look for gases, methane, CO2, flaring, whatever issue they possibly can. It's the power of bad. And again, there's whatever they can get and grab, and it'll change by day after tomorrow. Let me ask you this. Okay, you talk about the Paris Accord, and that's what the first thing our president signed when he got sworn in, went in his office, signed back on the Paris Accord that we had gotten out of. I live in Center, Texas, a little town deep east Texas. My grandkids live in Atlanta, Texas, about an hour and a half away. Okay. They were playing t-ball. I turned on the news one night, and I'm going to watch my grandkids play t-ball the next morning. And it says it's going to be 60-something degrees tomorrow in Atlanta, Texas. So I short sleeve shirt, got my lawn chair, head to Atlanta the next morning. I'm sitting at 9 o'clock in the morning. The temperature is 43 degrees, wind blowing. I'm freezing my rear end off, right? Now, I'll give you this. If they can't tell me between one evening and the next morning what the temperature is going to be within 20 degrees, I'm paying $78 trillion, hundreds of thousands of jobs, because these same weathermen are telling me that I'm going to potentially keep it from going up 1.5 degrees over the next 20 years. Get the logic behind all this stuff. And this is real.
You're absolutely right. It's real. It's almost like, the sky is falling, the Chicken Little story, or I think, right, the chicken that ran saying the wolves are coming. I don't remember that, whatever it is. But it's like, guys, it's not happening. I don't know, but one big thing that they do talk about was the big winter storms that we had last year.
Uri was, and it was very interesting. And people, are legitimately should have been upset. People's lives were lost when you have something like that. Thank God we have a society that cares about human life. That is most important to us. But overall, I spent 5.5 days by myself without electricity outside the ERCOT grid. Things weren't better outside the ERCOT grid, just for news. But what happened, of course, from the Railroad Commission's part, our part is to provide natural gas. We do not provide electricity. So when people start getting mad at the Railroad Commission, they're kind of pointing the gun somewhere that's not. Electricity is not the product. In fact, 20% of the gas that we produce in the state of Texas goes to generate electricity. Okay. Now, some of the natural gas production of electricity shut off during the storm. I think the total was 17% of the 100% lost electric load. 17% was reflected, say, well, that was natural gas. Well, the largest part of that was because the electric companies turned off the electricity to the natural gas plants that generate electricity. So they turned the switch off and shut down the natural gas plants. Well, you can't start it up for a day or two, and we were in the midst of that storm. So that wasn't the fault of natural gas. It was they turned the switch off. That's why we're redoing. The governor and House Senate Bill 3 have redone, the priorities of what's important, the critical infrastructure. You leave electricity on the electric generating companies next time, folks, okay? You don't turn off the plant that's making the electricity. I think they finally came down, I think it was about 7% that were faults of the natural gas system, pipelines and whatever like that, 7% of the total. The last statement was, though, of the people that needed natural gas during Storm Uri, 99.5% received natural gas, butane, whatever they needed during the storm. Why? And it's an amazing story and a good story about the state of Texas on that. Yeah. Because even though the production of natural gas didn't go to an all-time record high because of different closures of whatever just during the storm, but the distribution was an all-time record high of natural gas. How do you not produce record numbers but distribute the record number of natural gas? And this is the great story of weatherization. The natural gas industry and the Railroad Commission regulate is underground storage in Texas. We have caverns, caverns in the earth holding tons of natural gas. In fact, the state of Texas could completely stop producing natural gas today. We have enough in underground storage to provide us for 1 full month in the state of Texas. No other state has that. That's the untold story of Storm Uri. Yes, but during the storm, even though we did not produce, we distributed record amounts, and that's what's important. Yeah. And so you have the news media saying, "Oh, natural gas production went down, the production went down." Yep, but the distribution was there. And what's important, whether you're making it or whether the folks are getting it when they need it. So natural gas did, the last statement in the hearing at the legislature right after the storm was, natural gas saved Texas, period. And it did. The good Lord gave us this stuff, and we think in Texas, Texans have done the best job of any place in the world. In fact, the Railroad Commission, Forward Magazine put that the Railroad Commission of Texas is beyond doubt the most respected regulatory agency for oil and gas on planet Earth. And that's Texas. I'm proud of it.
Well, you know what? I do like to think that we do lead the way in anything oil and gas, especially in new technologies. So you're telling me...
Let me on Storm Uri. Can I go back? Yeah. Storm Uri, I actually had an article written that the Wall Street Journal published. Can you believe such a thing, that this idiot here got published in the Wall Street Journal? But basically the story of what happened during Uri, what happened in Uri was that we have spent so much time and money funding and supporting the unreliable energy that the pilot light went out on reliable energy. Yes. Wind and solar went from 28% prior COVID down to 0 and 5% respectively. Okay. Natural gas was at 48. We went up to about 70% during the storm, as I mentioned. Okay. So the reliables worked. Wind and solar, unreliable, did not work. Now, I hear all these people say we're for all the above energy in Texas. Yes. I'm not. I'm for, clean, reliable, plentiful, and cheap energy. And I can go down the list that wind and solar are none of the four things. Maybe clean. Yes. But when you consider the what it takes to build them, it's not exactly as clean as some people think. But what we're doing, folks, is we've got... Since the storm, now if you're going to fix what happened during the storm, and that was kind of the intent, we should never not have that kind of situation panic, then we should be building more reliable energy. Yes. Okay? Since the storm, we've increased by 17% wind and solar. We have 0 natural gas, 0 nuclear, and 0 coal available. In fact, a woke corporation, AEP, has bought SWEPCO up in Northeast Texas, and they're talking about shutting down one of our few remaining coal power generating plants that has a 35-year at current technology life remaining, thousands of jobs, but because they're woke and coal seems to be not woke, they're going to close that one down. So that's less. So we have less reliable energy. We're adding 1,000 people a day legally to the state of Texas, and yet we have less reliable energy than we did during Uri. And Texas, by the way, is the only state in the nation that does not pay you and I the lowest spot price for our electricity. That's pretty good, isn't it? Why do we not pay the lowest price in the market for electricity? Because our legislature about 20 years ago decided they were going to be brilliant and we were going to be the wind capital of the world. We are. Hoorah. We won. We're the wind capital of the world. And Uri, we didn't have electricity to be reliable. Why? Because on the spot market, there is this formula that takes a day or so in advance that they do it. But when wind blows or sunshine, everything else has to stop producing, and you buy wind and solar. So we're guaranteeing those guys a profit, okay? You've got to buy the wind and solar and shut down the gas, coal, and nuclear.
Yeah.
Now, I come back to you as an old stock market guy. If you had a company and it was going to take you $500,000, $1 billion to put in an electric generating natural gas, nuclear, or coal facility in Texas, which we need, reliable energy, and you didn't know when you was going to sell your product and when you weren't, the uncertainty of the market, would you invest $500,000 when the government was telling you, well, we'll tell you when we will buy and when you can't?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting here, and so the attempt was made to do away with that law that was passed by the legislature that demands you buy wind and solar first. Now, I'm all for technology.
Yes.
I am not. If you can take water and make gasoline out of it, I'm for it. But we have spent $39 billion on wind and solar. Last year, China, our good friend, and India built 288 coal-powered electric generating facilities. And I guarantee you they didn't have an EPA looking at the smokestack seeing what color it was coming out. That's to add to their fleet, okay, of coal-powered generating.
Right.
All right. And part of that, by the way, with concentration count labor, okay? So they make with that electricity, they make 60% of the windmills and solar panels and batteries.
Okay.
So we go over there with our tax dollar and pay our best friend China our money. We buy windmills, solar panels, and batteries, drag them over here in trucks down the highways and every way you can. We prop them up and give them tax benefits of land usage and do away with the property taxes for several years and all this kind of stuff. So we give them taxes, rewards, and take that money from China, pay China, bring them over, prop them up, and we brag that we are so clean and good for the environment. It is absolute insanity, right? I mean, when you look at this thing, what are we doing? And it's become a religion. People like me, I'm a flat earther if I say this, okay? How dare me talk about that wind and solar are not the prime thing we're after, and we're not for all the above. I'm an old public school graduate in Tenny Hall, Texas, okay? I am not brilliant, but in algebra and math, okay? We're talking about, do you want reliable energy?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, if you take reliable wind and coal and nuclear, okay, you take reliable and you add less reliable to it, and you go, this plus this equals less reliable.
Yeah.
And we want lots of diversified energy sources. I don't care if you add 37 less reliable to reliable, it equals every time you add less reliable is less reliable. That's not the direction we want to go.
No.
If you want reliable energy. Well, my friend, that's the direction we're headed, and there's nothing slowing us down right now. We are having no reliable energy built in this state, and we're adding every day another windmill or solar panel. And I can give you the cost benefit on those suckers because President Biden ordered the first week in his office, or whoever's running things, ordered that you're not going to do a cost benefit analysis on any environmental project, okay? Give you a quick one. Okay?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm an old banker, so I'm big on what it's going to cost. Yeah. You take an oil well, okay, okay, and it lasts 50 to 70 years, costs about $20,000 to clean up and build with, okay?
Correct.
Windmill lasts 10 to 15 years, cost $535,000 to take down. Now, the cost, which is more beneficial cost-wise, 70 years for $20,000 or 10 years for $500,000. Okay, doesn't take much. Then to make them reliable for Storm Uri, what you need are batteries to back up the wind or solar, so you'll have it whenever you do have times that the wind's not blowing, the sun's not shining. Right? Okay. This is crazy. Battery, 5 hours natural gas powered electricity is $30,000.
Okay, 5 hours.
5 hours. Okay. The same amount of electricity for 5 hours for batteries is $600 million under current technology. It is indeed this insane, this battle that we're fighting. And then it comes to a head of what's happening in the Ukraine. You start understanding what's happening here. Let me give you an old book called The Prize. A lot may have not read, but The Prize is a great book of history.
Yes.
And it talks about since the steam engine back in about 1850.
Yes.
every world conflict, international conflict, has been basically over access to energy. Okay? All the way up, for the first time in 70 years, the previous administration, we attained energy dominance.
Yes.
For the first time in 70 years, it was the first administration, those 4 years, that we as America did not enter a new military conflict. Coincidence?
I think not.
A year from the date that we lost our our dominance, we're back in the Ukraine and internationally threatened with war. Now, I'm sorry, this is so much more important than just, Democrat, Republican politics. This is absolute insanity and abuse of the gift the good Lord gave us in oil, gas, and coal in this country as a center, especially Texas. Yeah. And so what I've done, the governor appointed me to the Interstate Oil and Gas Compact Commission. I was elected by them as their first vice chair. I wrote 60% of the resolutions. Governor Burgum in North Dakota took some from me because he wanted to do it himself. And we, against the Green New Deal, against AOC's proposal, get more regulations back to the states instead of the feds, I fought them there. In Texas, I helped Representative King and Representative Birdwell to stop giving money for these ESG funds, to stop financing. So we at the Railroad Commission, I've taken time and continue, and that's why I want to serve. I'm fighting a battle, and I think the state of Texas, think of this, if we were a nation right now, we would be number 3 in the world in oil and gas production.
That's right. And
the only states, Pennsylvania, they had a meeting last week, Rick Perry was up there and different ones talking about what do we do about the energy in this Western hemisphere that's under threat now because of Putin's pipeline. And Germany did exactly what the idiots are trying to do in America here. They shut down all of their coal, nuclear, and other generation of electricity and went to wind and solar. Today, their cost is 8 times ours. Their middle class, their largest import to Germany are wood chips. Why? Wood pellets. Because the middle class and poor cannot afford gas and electricity. And they're having wood stoves in their homes to heat and eat and have energy now in Germany, and we're looking at this thing going right on down the line. It's something very threatening, and Texas is the one place that's still producing enough energy that has access to LNG to send over to Europe.
Yeah.
Texas is it.
That's it.
And we're about to lose that if we don't fight back.
Wayne, that is amazing that you bring up what Germany has done and where they're at, because you just said it too. We have a far left, a green religion that is trying to put us in that same way that Germany is, and we will be in that same boat if we do not stop that from happening. And we need individuals on all sides that are in the oil and gas industry to have that type of a conversation with others going, we cannot do what the others are doing. That is an example of what not to do. We need to learn from those mistakes. You also mentioned there that with how much money they're investing in this non-reliable energy right now. Here for us, we have lost in the last 3 years as an industry, we have lost billions of dollars of investment money to actually go drill reliable energy right now. And that is just something that I wish that this administration could see. And it's like, hey, let us go do our job, benefit or, incentivize those to come back to invest in oil and gas in the true, reliable, proven technologies where you're also going to see a return on your investment. Because like you just said, with green energies, you may get a return on investment, you may not, and you don't know when you're gonna get it back. And that right there is just terrible. I mean, how can we get the word out there that, hey, we need to start drilling, but we also need those investment dollars, because we invest today, we will see benefits in 6 to 12 months from the new investments that we make
and one
today.
big problem, and Biden and his group on television are saying, all we got to do is just tell the oil and gas companies to turn it back on and they'll get it back on here. I'm sorry. Just like I said on this other, the uncertainty of what this administration is going to do, why would any oil and gas company decide they're going to invest several $1 million and get started back up drilling in Texas or anywhere else if they don't know if their current administration within 3 months is going to say, well, we've decided to shut you down again?
Absolutely.
And this is the uncertainty that the market never. I've been a stockbroker for decades. Uncertainty is the biggest threat and biggest cause for uncertainty and bad things happening to the market. And we're living under uncertainty with this president.
Yes.
I mean, and it's the idea that he's begged our enemies to increase production and telling us not to. And then he's saying, okay, well, they can turn it back on when I say to.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I wouldn't trust this son of a gun to put my money into if I had to.
No, you're absolutely right. It's like, why are we going to spend millions of dollars on new wells that right now are costing us even more because of the gasoline prices, the steel prices have gone up tremendously, and yet we still can't find all the labor.
Yeah, brilliant. And you're at that point right there. I want to take. You hear every day on the news, well, the price of oil is up, the price of gasoline's up, the price of oil, the price of gasoline. I'm sorry, yes, the price of gasoline goes up, but that's just one of 6,000 products that oil is responsible for. There's two. The big danger financially, again, I'm an old banker, is hyperinflation in this country. Prices where we can't afford what's going on. That's what destroys a country. Two ways you get hyperinflation. One is you print more money, each dollar bill is worth less.
Yes.
We've printed, what is it, $10 trillion of paper money in the last 3 or 4 years over this COVID and this other stuff and the infrastructure bill and all this. $10 trillion. That's hyperinflation leading. It's scary.
Yes.
Now you've got the petrodollar, okay, that's being threatened because China is talking with Saudi Arabia right now about using Chinese currency for their purchases of oil from Saudi Arabia. And Russia has already declared that they're not going, of course, they're in a corner right now. Yeah. They're not going to buy it except by using their currency. You think Iran's going to jump in there with the United States or with Saudi Arabia and Russia, and all of a sudden the U.S. dollar is no longer the international currency or the petrodollar? That is significant threat. That's happening right now. And we're sitting here playing games with our administration, and I've in this last 2 weeks have had a national group of attorneys and oil and gas people come to me and say, Texas is the hope for solving this thing. Y'all are, if our country, we're number 3 in the world in our production. We're the only liquefied natural gas ports in the Gulf of Mexico that are accessible right now without new building everywhere to get to Europe to provide them the natural gas that they are bleeding for with this pipeline from Russia. So the United States is Texas is set in a position that it's the world's in our hands. Let me give you a quick history story real quick.
Yeah.
But World War I, 1917, up here, Eastland County, Ranger Field, was the largest producing field in the United States. And after World War I, the European Commonwealth, whatever the names were after World War, sent a letter to the American Petroleum Museum. It says, we want to thank the folks at Ranger Field for helping us with the wave of oil to win World War I. World War II comes along. Kilgore, Texas, God gives us the second time. Largest find of oil in the history of the world was Kilgore. Big Inch and Little Inch pipeline carried 80% of the oil to our Allied forces. Winston Churchill, after World War II, I've got the poster in my office. It was a sea of oil from East Texas that helped win World War II. Winston Churchill. And my appeal to the voters in this day and time, this field in Midland out in West Texas into New Mexico is the largest discovery in the history. The third time God has given Texas the largest find in history. Now, what do we call that generation of my father that came back from World War II, took that largest discovery of oil, made the most generous, profitable superpower in the history of the world, the United States, from that. We call them the greatest generation.
That's right.
And my appeal to voters and to our citizens of Texas, he's done it the third time. We're sitting there, God's given us the largest. Are we going to sit back and be Joe Biden's and AOC's dummies? Are we as Texans going to sit up and say, God, you gave it to us the third time and we're going to be the great generation like our dads? That's the decision on our hands right now today.
The United States, we are the rock for the United States. Wayne, I got to ask you, I need to get your crude truth. Why do you want to be reelected as a Texas Railroad Commissioner?
Texas, at this point in time, oil and gas is absolutely the tool the good Lord has used and given Texas. And I am responsible, when I'm the Railroad Commissioner, I represent both the fiscal and physical well-being of the minerals that the Lord gave us under the ground in the state of Texas. That's my job. I've never seen it under threat like we are right now. I've never seen the opportunity for us to save literally the Western world from the state of Texas with what he's given us with this large discovery. So I feel very responsible. I think it's a God calling. I think it's a time, and when I go and speak to places, of course, most people don't even know what the Railroad Commission does, sadly. And I see the media constantly covering this green stuff, you know, and that oil and gas is going away and we're all for green energy. I see my fellow politicians say, we're for all the above energy, multiple reasons. That I disagree with. I disagree with that we're for all. We're for the good stuff. Yeah. We're for good energy, clean energy, not bad energy. And there's a difference betwixt the two.
There is.
And most of when I get back from places, I come back from speeches and I'm told, Wayne, why is nobody else telling us this? And that scares the punk out of me. Why is nobody else telling this? I think it's the truth, or am I delusional?
No, it's the crude truth.
And we need to get this word out more and more, and we need to stop playing this game. And I think the oil and gas people, industry, have never seen this coming. We took it for granted. And we have allowed our children and our grandchildren to be taught by liberal university professors and green folks that, oil and gas is dirty, it's terrible, and the United States is selfish and horrible, and that we've got to go to this green energy, and global warming is terrible, and CO2 is horrible. And you go through the facts, it's not true. And so that's why I'm called. I think there is a truth that needs to be spoken, and I've been put in a position. I hope when I go to heaven say, you did good and you did what I had you to do, and it's a duty I feel called to do.
Wayne, I cannot thank you enough. I got to do the plug for the show. You have given the crude truth today, and that's what my show is about here. We need to let people know about what's just going on in the industry, not only when there's elections going on, but all the time. And again, I want to let people know that the runoff election is May 24th. Early voting starts 2 weeks before that. And what I got out of this today is that Texas is a hope for not only America, but for the world. God bless Texas and God bless us all. Wayne.
Yeah, and vote for the only Christian on the ballot. That's all you got to remember.
There you go, Wayne. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you all again on The Crude Truth.
The easiest way to start your own podcast and TV show? Real News Communications Network. Stand out from your competition. Produce streams of high-quality social media content. Become a thought leader in your industry. With RNCN, you get to be the host. We handle everything else. Tour one of our 3 locations in Dallas, Fort Worth, and the Colony. Call 972-402-6333 or visit launchashow.com to find out more.